Hey everyone, this is Mike with GMAT Ninja. As you probably know, the GMAT is a computerized adaptive test. I want to explain what that means and how it affects proper time management on the test. Mismanaging your time on a test like the GMAT can absolutely kill your score. And to show you exactly what I mean, here's some evidence from the GMAT prepped software, which uses the same exact algorithm as the actual test. Now, if you look at questions 17 through 21, you can see that the student spent nearly 18 minutes on these 5 questions alone. On the verbal section, you have less than 2 minutes per question on average. So that's 9 or 10 questions worth of time for 5 questions. And how many of those 5 did the student get right? Only 2. Here's another example, also from GMAT Prep. Do you see what went wrong here? If not, go ahead and pause the video and take a look. Okay, so looking at that first question, we can see that the student spent nearly 6 minutes on this one, and all for nothing. Now take a look at question 15. Here the student spent nearly 5 minutes and still got the question wrong. Now look at questions 13, 16, and 23. The student spent about 3.5 minutes per question on these. So in total, that's over 21 minutes of time on these 5 questions. And how many of those 5 did the student get right? Only 1. On top of all of that, because of the lost time, the student had to blindly guess on the final 7 questions and got most of those wrong. We want to convince our students that no one question is worth more than about 3 minutes. If it's taking you much longer than that, you're probably going to have a hard time getting it right anyway, and even if you do, you might sacrifice 2 questions worth of time, if not more, chasing that one question. So the goal of this video is to convince you to bail when you flail. That means letting go of the questions that stump you, and avoid cutting corners on the questions that don't stump you. This is the best way to overcome the fundamental time management challenges of the GMAT. Take a moment and think about most of the tests you've taken in school. Every student sees the same exact test, and the questions are set in stone before you walk in the room. On most tests like this, your score, or grade, is directly related to your accuracy rate. The more questions you get right, the better your score will be. The GMAT, on the other hand, is adaptive, not static. That means that the test has a huge bank of questions to pull from and decides what question you'll see next based on how you're doing so far. You can imagine when you walk in the room, the computer thinks you're an average student destined for an average GMAT score, somewhere in the mid-500s. For the most part, the difficulty level of the questions towards the beginning of the test will correspond with that score level. But with each question, the computer sees how you are doing and adjusts that score estimate accordingly. Now, what the test is doing, as it starts giving you easier or harder questions, is trying to figure out the difficulty level at which you miss about 40 to 50% of the questions. Now, this is a really big deal. To get a 700, you don't need to ace every 700 level question. You actually should be missing about half of those questions. Here we can see that the student missed 11 out of the 31 quant questions. So the fact that he missed over a third of the questions and still got a 48 quant isn't surprising at all. Here we have a student who missed 8 of the 31 quant questions. And how did he do? The quant score actually fell by 3 points. As a disclaimer, this does grossly oversimplify the complexities of GMAT scoring. That 40 to 50% number will start to go down as you get above 40 on verbal and above 47 on quant. But the key takeaway is this: most students should expect to miss a ton of questions, and more importantly, you can miss a ton of questions and still get a great score. But with this good news comes the bad news. What if that would-be 700 student misses a bunch of the 500, 600 level stuff? Well, now, instead of bumping up the difficulty level and increasing your score estimate, the computer is going to think you belong at that 500, 600 level. If you make a bunch of careless mistakes on stuff that should be pretty easy for you, your score won't climb to where you want it to. And this is where we need to be smart with our time management. If you're stubborn, you'll waste a lot of time chasing questions that give you trouble. Then you won't have time to properly deal with the ones that you find more manageable. But if you understand how an adaptive test works and embrace the fact that you should be missing a lot of questions, you'll feel more comfortable letting go of the questions that stump you. Now, this does not mean that you should be constantly thinking about which questions are easy and which questions are hard. You have no idea what the GMAT thinks is easy and hard, so don't try to figure it out. All that matters is whether you know how to do a question efficiently. So assume that you're performing at your peak and let go when you're flailing. All right, everybody, to sum up how you should be thinking about time management on the GMAT, bail when you flail and don't cut corners on the stuff that you know. No one question is worth more than about 3 minutes, and missing the tougher stuff won't kill your score. However, rushing leads to devastating careless errors that will cause your score to take a nosedive. So work on letting go when you're stumped to preserve the time you'll need to carefully and systematically tackle everything else. This is Mike from GMAT Ninja. I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.